All right, welcome back as we hear Nicholas dropping raindrops on the roof at HTV. Once again, like we needed it, we rejoin Parish President of Lafourche Parish, Mr. Archie Chaisson. Archie, let's get into some of the service-oriented things. Let's start with power. How are y'all doing with power right now?
So we're a little over 50% of the way there, Martin. We started out with a little over 42,000 customers without power. The energy update we got last night at 5 o'clock showed us at about 24,000 without power. And they're picking up pieces every day. We hope the last real critical infrastructure piece we have left is later to see the hospital so they can get back on permanent power again to start putting the pieces back together at the hospital. They're trying to backfeed that from a different direction. So we're hoping that that'll be a couple of 3 days down the road, that they will get power, which will light up some of the South Lafourche community, and then they'll slowly work there. We've formed a great partnership with state police, the MPs that we have here from the National Guard, and the Lafourche Parish Sheriff's Office. There's a collective group that gets together every night at 6 o'clock to work on traffic for the next day. So we know where energy plans on working. We know where we have to set up roadblocks, and they've been really good to work with. On the water side, both the City of Thibodaux water plant and the North plant on Highway 1 near the Country Club are both back on permanent power. Those ball water advisories have been lifted. So everything north of basically Highway 182 in Lafourche Parish, including Bayou, except I think the Romero subdivision, are off the ball water advisory. And then, like I said, the South water plant right here in Lockport got hard power over the weekend. So we're hopeful in the next couple of days we'll see that ball water advisory come off of that as well.
And looking at some of these buildings in the codes, as you look at the codes, some of the older homes didn't make it. Some of the newer structures fared a little better. So I got to believe that the codes are going to evolve to where when we rebuild, the rebirth is going to be much stronger. Are you feeling the same way?
Yeah, it's weird, Mark, when you look at it from the air and from the ground. Those pre-Betsy homes that were built the old way survived really well, and everything built post-Katrina with the new building codes fared really well. It was that gap of that 1980s, early 90s homes that really took the brunt. And then some of the really older homes that may have been, pre-Betsy that weren't that great kind of fell down. But building codes work. We proved that, I think, last year with some of the storms, especially with Zeta, and then we definitely proved it with this one, which is a Category 4. So I think you're going to see that. There's disaster response teams on the ground from the state and from FEMA doing those individual assessments, because there is some red tape with that if you had a house that had more than 50% of the damage, then when you rebuild, you have to bring that entire home back up to code. So we're going to be working with those residents who fit that criteria. Once we identify them, as they come in for building permits, we'll deal with that with them and work in the best way possible. And we waived all the permit fees right now. So as you come in for electrical hookups and things like that, if your meter pan or your weatherhead was damaged, we've waived all of that stuff. In a lot of cases, we waived some of the electrical permits. If you just had to stand something back up really quick, our inspectors are out there every day, green tagging stuff as they look at it. We're not making people actually come in and go through the paperwork. But as we start the rebuilding process, as people start to put roofs back on and things like that, we'll still waive the permit fees, but we're going to ask you to come in for that permit so we can actually do the inspections to make sure those codes are being followed.
Let me ask you something, because it was hit me as I was riding and seeing all these telephone poles all over. They say it's expensive to bury cables, but I'm sure it's pretty expensive to be changing all this stuff too. Is that they ever thought that maybe one day we could make that happen if we get a little FEMA help?
Yeah, and I think you're going to start to see that, especially from some of the power companies. You're going to see some of those major runs go underground. I think you're going to see a lot of residential stuff go in the ground, as well as on the provider side, looking at people like Vision and RTC and AT&T. You're going to see a lot of that fiber go in the ground, because what happened was that fiber hangs under those big black thick wires on those power poles that are a little bit lower, that internet connectivity line and telephone lines. And as those poles dropped, as people rolled over things, as people were clearing debris off the road, a lot of that fiber got nicked. And it caused, that was a huge part of the communication breakdown we had the first couple of days after the storm. It wasn't the provider's fault. It's just their stuff got messed up in the storm. So I think you're going to see a lot of that go in the ground as well, to kind of help foreplay anything that we may see in the future.
As we get our updates from technicians in all the fields, and I make the call and I go, all right. And I know most of these people through the years, and I go, how long you think before we get the cable back up? And they always start off with that chuckle, because that chuckle is not a chuckle that it's going to be done fast. It's a chuckle that we're going to have a long wait. So I think everybody's trying, and once again, to go back to patience, we're just going to have to be a little more patient people, aren't we?
No doubt, and that's the message that we've tried to spread over the last couple of weeks. One of hope and one of patience, right? It's going to take us some time to get the debris off the ground. It's going to take us some time to lift some of these power lines. We have a whole list of streets that our garbage trucks can't get to yet. So we worked on setting up locations where people can actually come bring their garbage bags to as they can get out the streets, or if they can get their garbage cans to the highway so the garbage company can serve them. It's going to take some time to get through all of that, to get all of the big debris off the ground, whether we're talking about your tree debris, construction debris, things like it's the little things. We had a conversation with a councilman this morning about people who had bagged up their leaves and they skipped the debris guy skipped it. Well, if you bag it, it goes to a different landfill site. It doesn't get burned with the rest of the vegetative debris. So things like that, if you're going to bag it, leave it on a different pile. We'll get to it eventually. If you could pile up those leaves on top of your other debris, they'll grab it. But we have to be careful, of course, with all this rain that we don't wash leaves in catch basins and cause some issues. So it's those little things like that we're going to be working through with the residents and our councilmen and everybody in between, so we can kind of put the pieces back together.
All right, Archie, thank you so much. We appreciate the update. I'm sure we'll be talking to you tomorrow or later today. Keep up the great work, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thanks, Martin.
All right, there you have it, the parish president of Lafourche Parish. We're coming back with a lot more. Several Terrebonne Parish councilmen, councilwomen. We also invite Lafourche. Come on the show. Tell us about your district. We'll start that next. Don't go away.